Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I am your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Adam "Bomb" Siegel of the band The Faction, and a bunch of other bands. And he's done a lot of cool stuff in his life, and we cover everything from music business, music scene, all the way to a charity that he's involved in that's actually bringing good stuff to the world, which is a nice thing for me to be able to be involved in helping spread that message. So keep your ears out for that. He's a cool guy. We've known each other for a number of years, and he really has something to bring to the world. He's sitting in front of in his record collection, in the room that houses his record collection. And so if you're listening to this, go find the YouTube version and check it out, because it's an amazing record collection. I've been very fortunate to be able to see it in person. As always, if you are watching on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe and to share this to other people who you think might also find it interesting. Comment in the comment section and let us know what you think. And if you are listening to the podcast version, like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review anywhere it is that you're listening to this and you get your podcast content. Any help is super appreciated, and we've been so fortunate so far to have so much support from so many people. It's been much more than I could have ever imagined it would be, and I do really appreciate it. So you can find us at all the normal social media stuff at Anyway Whatever Podcast. Feel free to follow along, and as always, join the conversation and let us know what you think. I think that's all I got. We're going to get to the episode right on the other side of this. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today in the studio, on the phone, we have our good friend Adam Siegel from Las Vegas. Hey Adam, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. As good as I can be doing under these lockdown conditions.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing out in Vegas? It's got to be hot already.
Yeah, we're in the 90s now, and I ride motorcycles, so I've been getting out and riding out into the desert, and it's pretty easy to still distance on a Harley, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it's getting to that time of year where you don't want to be out there at 3 p.m.
Right, for sure. Even in Los Angeles, it's getting to be the same way. We've been in the high 90s here a lot. What kind of bike do you ride? What kind of you have a Harley, right?
Yeah. It's a 2015 Softail Slim. So it's one of their mid-size bikes. And it actually looked a little bit like a cafe racer when you get it stock, because the handlebars are way down on the frame, and I raised them up and I changed out the seats, and now it looks like a Heritage Softail, which is probably what I should have bought in the first place, but it's my first bike and I had no idea.
Right. Yeah, I remember when you bought it, I was like, oh, wow, okay, well, he's going down that road. Fair enough.
Yep.
A little backstory on Adam and I. First of all, do you have any social media accounts that you want to shout out right up front?
Well, I run the Faction official on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay.
Those are the only ones.
Faction is Adam's band that goes all the way back to the 80s, and he's a guitar player in that band. So you do the Faction social media, and then you Adam's in about 4 or 5 bands. So
Yep. And then some charities, so we can talk about that and drop
sure.
that website.
Yeah, I just the idea behind getting the all the social media up front is that if people don't listen all the way through, at least you got your plugs in.
Yeah.
One of the things that one of the distinctions of Adam and his association to me in my life is that Adam was the first person in a band to ever pay me money to do artwork for a band. And so one of the pieces of advice he gave me way back then in the 80s was that no matter what it is, I should get at least $100 for everything I ever do. And and you know the fucking stupid thing about that is that still sometimes it's hard to get somebody to agree to give you $100 for a piece of work, even 35 years later, which is just ridiculous to me.
So was that for the Living End?
Yeah, it was for the Living End, which was the band he joined after the Faction broke up in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, you know, I still feel that way, and I had this conversation within the last month with the guys from the Faction. We get hit up to use Faction songs all the time, and people want to just get permission to use stuff for free. And if we like their project or we know them personally, certain people in the band are like, "Oh, he's cool. Let's just flow it." And I'm like, "No, let's not. Actually, let's not devalue our artistic output that we worked hard on and survived off and on for 35 years, making people care about that song. Actually, let's not give it away."
Right. It's that whole, like, you know, exposure thing. Like, you know, we got this cool thing going and we'll give you guys lots of exposure. And it's like, I know for the Faction, you guys do not need any exposure at 30 some odd years into your career. And even for me, it's like, man, I've been doing this professionally for 25 years. Like, what do you think you're bringing to the table here that Paul McCartney isn't? I've done work for Paul McCartney, and I'm telling you, you have no exposure on that level. That, you know, I've done work for AC/DC and Kiss and all these bands, and you're just, you know, I don't want to be an asshole and I don't want to be arrogant, but just don't come at me like that. You know what I mean? Like, a little respect. If what I do has enough value that you want me to do it for you, then you can pay me to do it. You know, it's like, I'm trying to earn a living here.
Yeah. And, you know, giving away your art, whether it's music or visual arts, doesn't make people value you or your art more. It makes them value you less.
Right.
And you think you're going to make people like you and value you, and then next project come up and pay you a proper price on something. But actually, it doesn't work that way. They just want it free forever.
Yeah. There's never a next time where they want to start paying you. They know if they can get it for free, that they will. I mean, and that's the thing. Like with the merchandise industry, for the band merch industry over the last 15 years is. There's been an influx of people who will work for super cheap, and you can't fault the merch companies for wanting to get, you know, stuff for as cheap as they can because they just improve their profit margins. But at the same time, you know, what I could get paid 15 years ago versus what I can get paid today for the exact same piece of work for the exact same band. If I gave out those numbers, people would be fucking shocked at how it's been devalued.
Yep.
And the funny thing to me is that the scale has shifted where 15 years ago, bands still made their money on their records. And in the last 15 years, 20 years, bands make all their money off of playing live and merchandise. And so you would think that the shirt designers and the merchandise people would start making more money as their value grew, but it's that was not one of the great byproducts of the streaming age, let me tell you.
Yeah, now the live shows have been taken away currently, and that's the main place where the merch gets sold. And you know, you can get your quarter of a penny from a stream, but that's not going to put your kids through college or pay the rent.
No, it's not. So what you do is you decide to start a podcast and hope you can make a living off of doing that. You are also in a band called Suburban Resistance, and you are also a guitar player in the band These Roving Years. And Adam, when he joined or when he started, did you join or did you start These Roving Years? Was it already a band or is it a new band?
Yeah, the singer and I started it while drunk on the Flogging Molly cruise.
Okay, right. Because Adam's band, The Faction, does those Flogging Molly cruises, which is pretty awesome, actually. So yeah, he came to me with that he needed a logo for that band, and so I popped the logo together for him, and I'll post that. I'll pop that up as a little picture here for the people who watch on YouTube. As always, the podcast people are just going to have to go find it on Google Images or wherever. So yeah, Adam's always busy with band stuff between the Faction. But the Faction, is that a Faction officially retired again?
Well, no, actually, we're done playing live.
Okay.
I was just messaging with somebody this last week who referenced now that you guys have broken up, and it just kind of caught me off guard because we didn't break up. We didn't stop being the faction, and we communicate more and talk about projects and licensing and things more now than we have during the 5.5 year reunion that we've been on. So we're more in touch and closer and more together as a unit than I think ever maybe in the history of the band, except for maybe like 83 and 84, where we were practicing 4 nights a week.
And you're touring and all that stuff. What year did the faction start?
82. It was probably September of 82. Steve and I were skating at Winchester, and he mentioned that he'd heard I played drums from Charles Norman from Executioner and many other bands, and that they, for whatever reason, the existing drummer wanted to go. I think it was maybe Craig Bosch initially, and then he wanted to go be in the Bruces or something. For some reason, they needed a drummer, and this band didn't have a name yet. So this is probably September or so. So I go over and I try out, and Ray Stevens from Los Soldados is there, and maybe even Matt, and they're there to help Steve and Gavin check out the new guy trying out for drums. And so I come in,
right.
They show me Spineless Majority, and Russ Wright is already a guitarist there at the time, and we play Spineless or whatever, and I get the endorsement from Matt and or Ray from Loso, and then I join the band, and they have a guy, Craig Ramsey, who's a good friend and a skater who wants to promote shows, and he's decided that his production company is going to be called Faction Productions. I have his business card around here somewhere, and we're trying to figure out a band name. And it's literally, I think, on Halloween of 82, everybody just throws up their hands and said, why don't we just be the Faction, just like your production company, you want to be the Faction. And so that story about us forming on Halloween 82 is just about dead on. I mean, that's really, at least when the name came down the hallway at Steve's mom's house into the band room, and everybody said, yeah.
For people unfamiliar with the band, The Faction, I get listeners from all different walks of life, from fine art to punk rock to death metal and all this stuff. So anybody who's not familiar with the band, The Faction, they were, the guitar player is professional skateboard. The other guitar player is professional skateboarder, Steve Caballero. And so they were one of the original skate rock bands that catered heavily to the skateboard community in the early 1980s. For me personally, I've always been a fan of the band, but I never lumped you guys in with the hardcore scene as much as I did with the skate scene. Although I think you guys definitely were a hardcore band looking back on it now, but yeah, I've been a fan since, I bought the first 7-inch at Gremick Skate Shop in Los Gatos, like when that was the only place you could get it. And, so I've been along for the ride since the very beginning. You guys, the core time period was so like 82 to like 85, right? And then there was a hiatus, and then they came back with a different guitar player, and then there was a hiatus, and then they came back with with the Dark Room lineup, right?
Close. It was the Darkroom lineup, but with an earlier drummer.
Right. Is that Keith Rendon?
Yeah,
right.
Keith. Yeah, Keith is the drummer. I didn't play drums for the Faction for very long. There's one demo tape that it probably in Steve's storage unit somewhere. There's a demo with the film of me playing drums, but it was really quick that we wanted to have 2 guitars, and so I switched to second guitar. Me and Russ Wright played guitar, and we got Keith in on drums. And so fast forward to 2014, when this reunion we've been on happens. Keith is the drummer, and then the rest of the lineup is the Darkroom lineup.
Got it. got it. Yeah, I seem to have managed to miss like all of all of these reunion shows. I saw them all online, but I really wanted to go to the LA one, and I seem to remember there was some family engagement I had to do instead of being able to go to that. But you know, that's life. I saw you guys enough in the 80s. I guess I'll have to be enough. So me and Adam go all the way back to the 80s. He's the first person to ever have paid me for artwork. And then Joe Sib is the second person who paid me. And Joe's scheduled to be a guest on here sometime in the very near future.
He'll be better than I am, by the way.
Yeah, I'm expecting. I still do all the flyers for his comedy shows, or most of them anyway. Like, and so we're on the phone probably a couple times a month, and he makes me laugh really hard every single time we're on the phone together. Like, we just laugh about like shit we got into in the 80s and stuff. It's actually pretty funny. I really like Joe. He's been one of those friends over the years that like at different stages in my life, he comes in and goes out, and every single time we pick up like we never left. Like if I don't talk to him for 10 years and I see him, we pick up like we never ever left off. Like I talked to him the day before, you know. That's one of the gifts of Joe Sib, is that he's just that guy, you know.
You know, he sang with us this last Flogging Molly cruise.
Yes, I saw that.
Because Gavin couldn't make the trip.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like personally jealous because I thought you should ask me to do it because I could have pulled it off. But at the same time, you know, it's Joe. I mean, I do not rank next to Joe. I mean, I could have done it. I definitely could have pulled it off. But at the same time, you know, that was just my own personal petty jealousy, and I knew better than to even be upset about it because I had no right to even be in the conversation. But hey, you know, jealousy works how it works.
You know, it would have never occurred to me that you would have wanted to stand in and sing with the faction. I mean, I would have gotten in touch, but just
you don't have to apologize for anything, dude. This is all happening in my head over here on my own. Like you have no obligation to me.
Yeah, we were literally in the process of canceling playing the cruise when we found out that Gavin couldn't make it, and that was in the morning. We were like, we've got to cancel. And then I got a text from Ray or Gavin. What if Joe Sib would do it? I said, yeah, if Joe will do it, I'll do it.
Sure.
And Joe foolishly said yes.
Didn't Joe do some stuff with the early Living End where you guys did some faction covers and he sang on those too? Didn't that happen? Some live shows?
Yeah, we were called The End.
Right.
And we toured the country in '86. And he played bass and backing vocals, and then we did one frontline song where our manager would take over bass and then Joe would take the lead singer position, and we would do Here to Stay by Frontline.
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
And I always love that song. In fact, I think on their record, I think I played acoustic guitar or something. I don't even remember, but yeah, great song. And we did that tour. So I've been in a band with Joseph and lived it twice now. I've been in a band with Joseph. Oh, wait, 3 times, because the Frontline drummer, Dave, dislocated his shoulder back in is probably '86 or '87, and I played drums for Frontline for 2 shows with Dave standing next to me with his arm in a sling, telling me which song it was and when the parts were going to change. Go to the right. Okay. And so I've been in 3 bands with Joseph.
That's amazing. That actually kind of brings me around to the fact that at the time, and it's one of my very favorite things about the 80s hardcore punk scene, was the DIY spirit of, if you don't have anybody to put out your records, you create your own record label and you put out your own records. And as such, the faction, Adam's band, didn't have a record label. And so Adam created his own record label as a teenager called I Am Records, and started putting out faction records, which then became putting out records by other bands in the San Jose Bay Area. And my band ended up on that label, and Joe Sib's band ended up on that label. And then as I go through the years, like, you know, I realized, oh, the Drab was on there. So, you know, I talked to Brian, and Brian's like, oh, yeah, we were fucking label mates. And like, you know, like it's the big I Am Records family from the Bay Area.
Yep. I've still got most of those records lying around here, and I definitely recommend starting an independent record label for anybody desperate to lose money. if that's one of your life goals, start a record label.
Yeah, right. Some managed to. I mean, look at Epitaph. It started in the exact same way, and it's the biggest independent record label that's ever existed. So you know, it can go one of two ways. I think most of the time it goes the South way, but sometimes, I mean, Discord's done really well, and you know, who else? Like Beer City, I think does okay.
Well, Joe's label, which he learned how to run a label by hanging out in my little garage record label back in San Jose. Obviously, he learned how to do it better than I ever did because Side One Dummy's awesome. But yeah.
So you broke up a little bit, so we're gonna pause. I'm gonna come back with a clap, and then just go back to that. You know, talk about Joe Sib and Side One Dummy.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, look at Side One Dummy, Joe Sib's label. He got the idea for that, you know, hanging out at my label and my little garage record label, and he's obviously figured out how to do it a lot better than I ever did because Side One Dummy's doing great. So some of those little garage independent labels break out. None of mine ever did.
You know, well, I mean, you did have the Faction, and the Faction, I think, probably were about to get like a much bigger national profile when you guys called it quits back in the day than it ended up with at the time. But I think over the course of the last 35 years, you guys have kind of become a treasure to the punk rock scene. As I know, you were more of a local entity during your time, and now it's like you guys are the band that represents skateboarding as much as any other band ever has, as far as I can tell.
The interesting thing about that was that we always thought of ourselves as a San Jose band, and all the San Jose people thought of us as their band. And but we went around the country twice for about 18 or 20 shows each time, in the summer of '84 and the summer of '85, and then there was a short trip to LA. But we did those two trips around the country, and that really sort of festered over the 30 plus years during which the internet became a place where underground, unknown bands could be circulated. You didn't have to mail cassette tapes to trade tapes.
Right.
You could go online and find, and what we've learned now over the course of the 5.5-year reunion is how much those quick little 1-month US tours mattered to kids in every one of those cities. And there was an impression made that we didn't understand or know or get until 2014 when we did the reunion.
Yeah.
And, you know, we would book a show in Las Vegas and people were flying in from South America, and we're like, why? Why would they do that?
Yeah, I get every single one of those shows because I had to kind of watch from my vantage point of the internet because I work so much. I don't ever go anywhere or do anything fun. I saw that every single time you guys booked something, it was just like sold out. Video would come out and it was like packed rooms. No matter how big the room is you guys booked, it ended up packed.
Yeah, it was pretty. It's pretty crazy. It was pretty surprising.
That must be cool though to get to have that. As something that you realize later, to be able to be proud of something you did when you were so young that mattered to so many people, over the years, that's gotta feel good.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, it feels right for us to stop playing now, but the last 5.5 years during the reunion, it's been awesome. Every show has been awesome. You've got. It's the cliche. We've got fans from the 80s bringing their kids. I mean,
Right.
I mean, we're never a big band. We were never on a major label. We never sold hundreds of thousands of records. We were always the tiny, tiny little cult band, but we were important to enough people that 30 plus years later, they're still interested in it, and we haven't recorded new songs. I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of funny. So,
That's
but
that's
it's all
that's
It's
awesome
all
though.
it's all Lars's fault for creating the reunion.
Lars from Rancid, right? Was it Lars from
Yeah,
Rancid?
yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
yeah. He was Old Firm Casuals. His one of his bands was doing a San Jose Earthquakes event, sort of a private party for season ticket holders or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And he asked Gavin to come on stage and do a couple of Faction songs with him. And we hadn't played for 10 years. We did a San Jose Punk Rock Reunion in '04.
I remember
And
that
then
one.
nothing for 10 years. Gavin really didn't want to be on stage, didn't want to play live. His heart wasn't in it. And then Lars talks him into doing a couple Faction songs, Cokes or something at this San Jose Earthquakes event. And it was probably within 2 days, I get this long email from Gavin saying, essentially, what do you think? You do it, I'll do it.
Right, that's that, and the rest, as they say, is history, right?
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love the Faction, and I think it's awesome that you guys brought it back to put it in the realm of younger people and to satisfy the desire of older people who may not have gotten a chance to experience that. I think that's really cool. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about that I think is an amazing thing that you are involved with is the Punk Rock Saves Lives charity that you are part of. Can you give people a little bit of an idea of exactly what that is and what your role is and what the overall goal of that charity is? Because you were in our little talk before we started, you were explaining it to me, and it's just, I think it's an amazing thing, and I think it's a thing that people are going to want to know about, whether they have anything to do with punk music or anything like that. It's something anybody can find value in, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, check out punkrocksaveslives.org and you'll get the official story. But basically, good friends of mine, Rob and Tina Rushing, who I met on the Flogging Molly cruise, they were the U.S. Representatives of a charity called Love, Hope, Strength, which would go to concerts and venues and on tour with bands and swab people to get their DNA to put them into a data bank to hopefully match with somebody who needed a bone marrow transplant. Mm-hmm. And about a year and a half or so, maybe a little longer ago, Hope Strength stopped doing boots on the ground U.S. operations for the swabbing directly. So Rob and Tina formed a new charity called punkrocksaveslives.org. They asked me to help them to be a part of that on their board of directors, and my law firm does the legal work for them, and with ideas and contacts in the music industry. And so now it will include some efforts on behalf of Love, Hope, Strength still, but it's open to any and every cause or charity that the board of directors and Rob and Tina feel is a good use of our efforts at fundraising and outreach. It can be animal shelters, it can be battered women's shelters, it can be fundraisers for certain cancer prevention, any other disease. And the key to it is that we work through the bands and the venues and the promoters as our vehicle. So, for example, when the pandemic sort of put a hold on all these things, we were on tour with Anti-Flack. And when Punk Rock Bowling gets up and going, we're going to be involved in the part of the mall that's devoted to charities. We'll be out there fundraising. And in years past, Rob, he would go on tour with Ozzy Osbourne, and there'd be a booth at the venues for the Ozzy Osbourne shows and things like that. And we even get ideas for causes from our headliners and promoters. Perhaps a band member has a family member struggling with particular illness, or whose pet cause is this or something else. And so we'll take on and partner with them and work on behalf of the cause that is near and dear to the hearts of the band members themselves. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's up and running. We're going to be fully official with the IRS once they get back to doing other work other than sending out relief checks or whatever it is. They're very backed up currently, but we're official 501c3. A lot of online presence. When shows get going again, you'll see us everywhere, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that is amazing, and it's one of those. It's one of those things that, when we were kids and we were growing up in the punk rock scene, you could have never, ever, ever imagined that music genre would end up becoming what it is, and having something like this grow out of it. Like, it's just, it's one of those like mind blowers to me that all of us grew up into functioning adults for the most part. And then something like this can spring out of, it says a lot about what we all learned about DIY, growing up that way. And it's like, you see a need and you just find a way to fill that need. And that I absolutely love that. And I love that you're a part of that. It makes me very proud of you, as a friend that we've been for so long. So I want you to give out that web address again. And if there's any other social media, because I think it's important that people go and check this out and learn about it. So when the world opens back up, we can actually start doing something to help with that.
Yeah. So it's punkrocksaveslives.org, all one word. There's also Instagram and Facebook pages, but the primary outlet of official information is punkrocksaveslives.org.
That's fantastic. That is awesome. Another thing that we have to talk about, because if anybody's watching this on YouTube, there's no way they're not going to be able to see what I'm seeing, is your record collection. I've been fortunate enough to be inside of your house and see it in person, and it's to say that it is impressive would be the understatement of all understatements. Obviously you had to have started doing this when we were kids, but how active are you still in it, or are you done? Are you anywhere near done? Because where are you going to get any more room?
Yeah, well, I'm very, very active in collecting records still. I still have the record, the first record I bought in 1972, and for the most part, I've never really gotten rid of records. Although in the last few years, I have started to sort through and get rid of duplicates. And, I had 8 copies of Led Zeppelin 2. It's too much. It's too much, things like that. So the last few years, I've been actively giving out party favors at my annual Christmas party of packets of 10 or 15 records a piece. And it's really been just an effort to get rid of duplicates. So I think I'm down to 15,000 records, Christ, which is, that feels like a comfortable amount. So now 5,000 of those are 45. So they're not all 12-inch. But as you can see, I collect picture discs, and I keep everything kind of set up like a record store, because that's where I'm happiest. So now I live in one.
Sure. That's what, if life's about anything, it's about creating a space where you can be, happy in your own environment. Like, if you have the privilege to find yourself in a position to do that, you owe it to everybody on earth to do it. I seem to remember there were, aside from the fact that I think you have every Misfits record on vinyl, like every possible iteration of every Misfits record on vinyl, which makes me personally happy. I seem to remember when I was there, it was a lot of Kiss and a lot of AC/DC records.
Yeah. And actually there's plenty of Misfits I don't have, but I'm definitely a Misfits collector. And so I've got a lot of those, a lot of AC/DC, the Cult, the Ramones, Iron Maiden, Kiss. I'm not really a completist, but I definitely collect some of those bands, and I've got a lot of them. I've recently been collecting David Bowie 7-inch picture discs. I've got some.
Okay.
I had quite a few very old ones, and then there's been a whole series of reissues, and they're just beautiful. And so, you ask if I'm still active. Something like that gets under my skin, and then suddenly I've got to have every one of them. So.
Yeah, well, I as a collector of, I collect, my big thing is I tend to collect die-cast cars. And I was out of the hobby for a good long time because I wasn't in a place where I could really show my collection. It was all in storage. But now that I have the art studio, the shelf behind me is like just jam packed with them. And so I kind of get that. You get like, I just learned of a company that a die-cast car company that had cropped up in the last decade that I wasn't aware of. And once I found out about it, I started seeing their cars. I was like, I'm going to end up divorced because I want so much of this stuff. Like I found a place that will sell you an entire, like they'll come out with a series of like, like Japanese 1970s, factory race cars. And then there's a company that will sell you a case that has one of each inside of it. So you don't have to go hunting for it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be so broke if I don't not do it. And behind me, you can there's like a Moon Eyes car that you can see the logo for back there. And that's one of the cars from that company. And I'm actively right now trying to get the art director who handles all the car designs for that company to come on and be a guest, because that's going to end up being like a 5-hour episode.
Yeah.
Oh, so awesome. I get it. I get the whole, I want all of everything. I totally get that. Yeah. Just behind you, I think there's a stairwell that goes down, and then the records follow all the way down the stairwell as well. I've seen pictures online. I'm gonna grab some pictures. I'm gonna have Adam send me some pictures of his record collection from inside of his house, and I'll pop them up on screen for the YouTube watchers or viewers, and then people who are following the podcast, I'll have a place on the Instagram when I release this episode where people can go through and see how killer his record collection is, especially with the picture disc, because those are such a visual thing. It's not, it adds like so much flavor to how you have your everything displayed.
Yeah, for sure.
And you kind of collect across genres that you don't necessarily listen to a lot of, because I know we've talked a little bit before, and there's some death metal stuff that you have that I would have never expected that you were into.
Yeah, I have one particular friend out here in Vegas, Ben, who has always been into it and has exposed me to a lot of it. And listening to death metal on recordings, especially initially, I didn't get it at all, because every type of music I liked, the melody of the song was always carried by the singer. Even if it was a simple melody, like a Black Flag or Ramones or something like that, the melody of the composition was carried by the singer. Well, in a lot of the heavier forms of metal, the melody is on the guitars and the vocals are rhythmic, or so enhancing the song in some way other than focus melody. And so it didn't translate. I have a recording studio in my house, and I would record some of these bands with the whatever Cookie Monster vocals, the growly vocals.
That's my favorite description, the Cookie Monster vocals.
And I learned about that type of music, and I learned the fact that the melody of the song, the part you sing along, part where everybody goes whoa whoa whoa, is the guitar parts. It's just a different setup. And then Ben would drag me to see some bands, and live, if the band was good, not all these bands are good.
Yeah, it's fair.
Live, if the band was good, I got it immediately. So that's how I got into Gojira and Amon Amarth and In Flames. Live, it just clicked immediately. Like
Yeah.
it was being with their people and seeing them on
Sure.
stage, seeing how they moved, reacted to the music. That translated immediately. And so now I have every In Flames album. I have every Amon Amarth album. Um, there aren't that many of them. I'm not in the genre still. It really depends on me happen to be in the room with that band and having that click happen. So yeah, it's probably, less than 250 records I would say are death metal or extreme metal or anything like that. But there is a little bit. It has worked its way into the room.
I remember back when you were signing my band, I was in a thrash metal band, and which was a different thing for his record label at the time. And I would bring over like I was tape trading at the time, and I'd bring over like Napalm Death demos and stuff, and you were like, man, yeah, I don't get this at all. And I was like, no, but this is like exactly where I want this band to go. And you're like, well, I don't really get it, but I guess if that's what you guys want to do. And then we never really did. The rest of those guys wanted to go off in a more, grungy, melodic way. And I just wanted to, become the next Carcass and that.
Yeah.
And then I ended up out of the music business for a decade or for 20 years. But,
yeah.
So yeah, I'll post some pictures of the record collection. And I think people will be impressed. It's really, it's quite a thing to see. Adam lives in Vegas, and me and my wife, being in Los Angeles, we are able to actually get out to Vegas once or twice a year. And we always try to make a point to see Adam whenever we can. Last time was at Punk Rock Bowling, and we hung out, we got to hang out a little bit, and I always appreciate getting to spend time with you, and on the times when we're there and we get to spend time with your whole family is always really cool for the two of us. I know that.
Yeah, for sure.
We haven't seen your new place yet, though. We have to check out the new place.
Yeah. And then you say you work so much you never get out and have any fun, but I did take you to a hockey game.
Yes.
And I did take you to an AC/DC concert.
You did. That was so awesome. Yeah, Adam is an insane hockey fan, and so he was in town to see a Flyers Kings game because his one of his relatives moved out to Vegas, and she was from Philly, so he was taking her to go, and me and my wife ended up going along because I'm a Kings and a Flyers fan, if that makes any kind of sense. My fan loyalty is so absurd that nobody can ever follow it. But yeah, it was fun to go to that game. I'm people who listen to the show know that I'm an ice hockey goalie, and the night before in my game, I had gotten like an 80-mile-an-hour slap shot like directly to my face mask, and was walking around the Kings game with a low-level concussion. And so that was always interesting because we were up pretty high, and I was getting pretty dizzy for a lot of it. I was kind of freaking out a little bit.
Yeah. Survived.
I've survived way worse shit than that. I think you've probably been along for some of the worst shit I've survived over the years for our friendship. And then the AC/DC concert for me was for a number of years I lived within walking distance of Dodger Stadium in Echo Park, and Adam ended up having an extra ticket, and he brought a couple friends along from Vegas, and so I ended up being like the fourth guy in the group, and he's like, hey, do you want to go? I have a ticket. And I was like, I had no interest in seeing AC/DC at all. Even though I love AC/DC and they have paid my rent way more than one time with shirt designs, but on a functional basis, I'm like, I don't really care. But you know what? I want to hang out with my friend Adam, and it's close to home. So they came out, and we did a little bar hopping in Echo Park and had a little food before, and that was really fun. I got to know those other two guys, Ben and Omar, who are good friends to this very day because of that. And so we walked over to the Dodger Stadium to see AC/DC, and it was one of those experiences that I could have never imagined I would enjoy as much as I did, because I'd never really been to a big, like arena show like that, that at best like Iron Maiden at the Forum or something, but never like in a baseball or football stadium, you know, and it was a spectacle. It was a sight to behold.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good time, and it's one of those things, and I would say the same thing about Kiss because a lot of people don't like Kiss, and I can understand not liking Kiss, but I would say that you don't have to like Kiss. Now you did like AC/DC, but you don't have to like AC/DC or Kiss and certain other bands who know how to entertain to the back row, no matter who is there or why they're there or what they think of their recorded output or anything about them. There are certain bands that, and they've lasted a long time because they know how to do this. It's that spectacle. There's no dull moments. Every song has a reason to be in the set. It's calculated. It's rehearsed. The props come up at the same time. Yeah, we all know we're being manipulated. You're just being manipulated. But there are certain bands that they know how to do the big giant venue, and it just shows. And AC/DC is one of them.
It was something else. Right before the lockdown started happening with the pandemic, you had offered me a chance to go see Kiss with you. Did you actually get to go? I couldn't go, or didn't want to go. I can't remember which. But did you actually get to go to that show, or was it locked out before?
Yeah, that's the last show I've been to.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you got to do that.
Yeah, my other friend went, and she had a blast. And David Lee Roth opened, which was interesting.
Okay.
So,
I love DLR. In his prime, he was definitely, even though at the time when he left Van Halen and did his solo records, I really loved those records. And that was at a time when I didn't like any of that kind of music. I only wanted music that would go as fast as it was humanly possible to make music go.
Yep.
But I love those DLR records because he's just such a charismatic personality. And he, you always got the impression that he was laughing at himself a little bit and he wanted you to laugh at him a little bit too. And I always appreciate that about him. I do like the David Lee Roth Van Halen stuff. And that's kind of all I like about Van Halen. I didn't like any of this stuff they did previous. And it's another one of those bands that when I got asked to do shirts for them, I was pretty happy about a chance to get to do that. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot to work with. I was sent a bunch of stock record cover stuff that I had to just kind of repurpose. And so it could have been more fun if they'd have let me, do my thing. I kind of was just like a mechanical artist on that a little bit more, but still I got that in the portfolio. I can say, hey man, I did shit for fucking Van Halen, and that's not a bummer.
Totally. So you should enhance that story and be all like, tell people about the time you partied with DLR and talked about shirt designs and hung out. I mean, just enhance it.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty big on being truthful, so I probably wouldn't ever go that way. But, and I'm also, that kind of just speaks a little bit to how I operate and how I run my businesses. I'm not one of those people who just constantly hounds the merchandise companies and the management companies to give me tickets as part of the deal to design shirts for bands. But every once in a while, I'll do something for a band. I'll be like, hey, when they come through, like, I want to take my kids because they want to see this band. Or, one of the guys that I played hockey with at the time, it was one of the weird coincidences of life is that at the time I was doing a lot of contract work for Live Nation when their merchandise wing of that company was in full swing. And then I found myself playing goalie for the Live Nation sponsored ice hockey team. And so the guy who ran the team was kind of a big shot over there. And when the original Misfits did all these reunion shows, I had to call in a favor on that one. And I asked him if he could get me 5 seats for the Misfits show in LA. And, he pulled it off, and I was able to take my kids and my wife to go see the original Misfits. And that was super fucking fun. And so, I'll do it if I have to, but I'm not one of those people who likes to impose in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And was that LA Forum show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I've been to I think 5 of the reunion shows, and those things have been really great. We played with Sam Hain in '85 in
I was at
Santa
that
Cruz.
show.
Yeah, yeah. So and I haven't spoken to Glenn since then. I don't think. I know Steve has talked to him, but saw that first one, Riot Fest Denver, when they used to do Riot Fest still in Denver, and that was the first Misfits reunion show, and I was just I was transported back in time, and I was right by the mixing desk. So to the extent the sound at a Misfit show could be awesome, I was in the spot where it would be most awesome, which it's the Misfits, okay? So that's
Right.
it's
Right.
not really the point. But yeah, screaming every word, jumping up and down,
Oh
just
my
so
God.
fun.
Yeah. My when
Just amazing.
when we went, we got there a little bit late because my kids are all adults now and they're legal to drink. So we ended up hanging out at the house drinking a little longer than we should have. So we missed a little bit. But like literally as soon as we were inside of the arena and we could hear the songs, we just all started screaming the lyrics as we were going down the hallway to where our seats were. And like, it was like, we
Yeah.
were jumping around, everybody's crying and hugging. It was like winning World War III or something. That was a
Yeah.
fantastic moment I was able to have with my kids. And anybody who listens to this show knows that my love for the Misfits is complete and total. And not everybody feels the same way. I know a lot of people don't think much of Danzig and don't think much of the Misfits, and and I'm sure there's people going to comment on this in the comment section about how much they hate them. And this is a show where I don't give a fuck if you don't like what I like.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna shit on what you don't like. You just leave me alone and let me enjoy what I want to enjoy. Like
Now, you were at the Sam Hain Fact Show in '85
Yeah.
in Santa Cruz, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you know the story about after the show,
I
what
think
happened?
I've heard the story. Yeah, but why don't you go ahead and
Yes.
tell it?
So they had not booked a hotel room in Santa Cruz, and it was a Friday or Saturday, and Santa Cruz is a tourist town, and it fills up. And so we're actually in the faction van following the Sam Hain truck around Santa Cruz after the show and thinking they're going to find a hotel room and we're going to hang out and have a beer and hang out with the guys from Sam Hain. And they can't. There's nothing available. So we pull up alongside and I'm just like, just follow us back to San Jose and crash at my mom's house. Because we were just kids, so I still lived at home, and so they're like, okay, so they follow us over there, and they all come in, take shower, get cleaned up, hang out. I interviewed Glenn for my fanzine. It was called Cold Grave. I did an interview with him, super nice on my little Walkman. The Glenn crashed in the truck to guard the equipment, and the rest of the guys crashed on the floor
to guard it in suburbia.
Yeah, in suburbia. I'll tell you, I've had band vans broken into enough that I completely understand, and he did the right thing.
We all know that story.
Yeah, so Erie Vaughn and Steve Zing, and I'm spacing out, Damien, crash on the floor of IM Records out in that converted garage. And the next day, they come in and they're getting ready to go to San Francisco. They have to leave early because Glenn was going to go toy shopping in Chinatown.
Sure, as you do.
And so they're packing up, and my mom is actually making some eggs and breakfast and stuff like that. And they're all being super polite, nice to my mom. And pack up, take off, leave. Everybody's stoked. We had Glenn Danzig hang out with us and Sam Hain. It was a big deal. And then my mom's kind of asking me, well, who were those guys? What band was that? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, used to be in the Misfits and stuff like that. And I bring her Initium, and I show her the cover of Initium with the blood or the faces. And she's just like, that nice Glenn fellow is this one here with all the blood.
That's great.
Like, and she was pretty surprised that that nice boy Glenn was there with all the blood.
Yeah, for people who are listening who might not know, Sam Hain was the band that Glenn Danzig left when when the Misfits broke up. And even if you don't listen to punk rock music, you know who the Misfits are. And if you don't, then, I feel bad for you. So yeah, I think we covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover with you. Most importantly, the charity that you work with, and your amazing record collection. Is there anything you want to add before we start winding down?
I don't think so. I mean, we are working on some faction-related projects, even though we don't play live anymore. So we're in the middle of releasing digitally the bootleg series.
Okay.
And we have live shows that you can get on all the major digital outlets. I think 6 or 7 of the live shows are out already, and these span from 1983 to 2018.
Wow.
Every different lineup of the band, and they're probably going to be 5 or 6 more. And so we're just trying to get as much of the history out there and available, especially for the super fans. And these are literally bootlegs, soundboard tapes, wow, video cassette recordings. They're just all over the place. We have our show from 2016. We played in Santiago, Chile. So there's a show from Germany. It's really kind of interesting. And then
is that stuff available on Spotify? Because I'm primarily a Spotify guy, so I'm going to want to go back and listen to all this stuff.
Yeah, so if you're ever searching for any of that, just put in the Faction bootleg series, and you'll bring up a bunch.
Cool.
Cool. And then once we can travel and get together in a recording studio, and we're going to re-record our greatest hits. Our recorded output's always been a little sketchy as far as sound quality.
Sure.
I know the fans love the originals, but the recording quality bothers us. Sure. And so we want to have a great sounding version of Like a Battering Ram and a great sounding version of Corpse in Disguise or whatever it is. So we're going to record with Dave Klein, sometimes drummer with Agent Orange, and the studio to the Punk Rock Stars in LA.
What studio is that?
Now. It's Dave Klein recording.
Oh, okay.
And so we're going to get out there as soon as the quarantine is over and we can travel down there. And we're going to re-record our 12 most popular songs as shown by digital downloads. And we're going to put that out digitally and on really cool gatefold splattered vinyl deluxe 180 gram vinyl release. So that was to be out by now actually, but it got pushed back. We were actually, almost packing up the equipment to go to the studio when the shutdown order for California came down, wow, which you remember very early in the process.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for those new projects, and then I'm in 3 other bands. So
I'll make sure in the description of the YouTube video and the description in the podcast versions I'll put the links to all your stuff in there so people can find what you're doing. Did you guys find a label to put out the Greatest Grinds record that you're working on?
We had a couple labels.
Because I know I talked to you about one of the labels that I work for, and he kind of went on a hiatus with that. So I'm sure nothing happened there, but I was curious if you had solved that problem.
Well, we did. We had a couple labels express willingness, but then ultimately we decided that we're going to resurrect IM Records with the IM Records logo, and the label art is going to be an adaptation of the label art that Steve drew for the first Faction record. It'll be the skater inside the bowl with the IM Records logo, and we're going to press them up through Pirates Press out of San Francisco. They had the capacity to do the splatter colors and the vinyl weight and the quantity that we wanted, which is a lot. And we're actually, once the recording is done and we know that all the parts are in the works, we're going to launch a pre-order online. So anybody who's really interested in getting it can get it in advance and be sure that they'll get one. We're going to make a fair amount, but they're going to sell out. So we're going to do a pre-order.
Right.
We'll announce it everywhere, and it's going to be awesome.
That's amazing. I'm sure all the artwork's done, but if it's not, I throw my hat in the ring to do that for you, or any future stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm always in the my hat's always in the ring for anything that you're involved with, and especially faction stuff.
Cool.
So I think we're gonna wrap it up with Adam Bomb Siegel. I appreciate you coming on, Adam. It's always amazing to talk to you, and I've said this, you know, in some of the other episodes. And one of the gifts that this show is giving me is a chance to sit and talk with my friends and people who I admire and that I find interesting. And I didn't know when I started doing this that was going to be of such benefit to me as a person, just to be able to talk to the people who mean so much to me as friends. And, you know, so it's good talking to you, man. I really appreciate it. And especially in this time of quarantine, it's been really nice to just, you know, get a little Adam time.
Great. It's been great talking to you. Thanks.
Yeah, cool, man. I'll see you next time in Vegas if I'm ever allowed to go back to Vegas.
You will be.
All right, man. Take it easy.
You too.